Well, hello once again. Before we start this video, there is something very important I must do. Our good subscriber and the supplier of my horseradish plant, Scott Johnston, he says, I cannot stand to see a label left on something. It's got to come off, John. Do you understand? I will be requiring counseling if you do not do this. Well, here we go, Scott. I don't want anything happen to my good buddy, Scott Johnston. Well, now that we've cleared that hurdle, let's move on. I've got the jukebox on its side, and the reason being is I bought a brand new can of pre-stain treatment, and we're going to go ahead and put it on along here, all along the bottom, and some on the end right here where there's bare wood, and there'll probably be a little bit put down there at the bottom. And then I'm going to go ahead and paint this black. Get that finished up after the pre-stain treatment has, you know, I'll probably let it sit all night, and then I'll paint it in the morning. Well, I also bought a brand new can of white lithium grease in a spray can, which I really like. It seems to it's done a lot of greasing around this house for this and that, you know, locks and things. But these wheels are in need of some good greasing, and I think the best way to do it is to just go ahead and shoot a few shots of white lithium grease down in there. I'll hit all four wheels with it. And we'll go ahead and what happens is the propellant evaporates, leaving the grease behind. Makes them quiets them down quite a bit. I like that. You wipe off the excess. You don't want too much oil or grease on these wheels. They collect dust like you wouldn't believe. Then you got a whole, you know, a whole ball bearing set up there full of dust and dirt. You gotta be careful with that stuff. So that's what's going on today. Oh yeah, one more thing. What else? I bought some cloth for our speaker cover. Cloth for the speaker cover. We got to put that on first. It'll be one big piece covering the whole thing. You're going to like the way I do this. Yeah, I don't think you've ever seen anybody do it like that. Matter of fact, I think I've only done it once myself. So get ready for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Right now, let me finish greasing the wheels. Well, we've got the bottom edge painted now and finally dried. But if you come over here and look what happened here. It's a water-based paint, must have lifted it up. The rest of it's okay. No problem, you know, I could take an iron to it and heat it back down, but I think what I'll do is stick some glue under there and clamp it. Won't take but a couple hours, should be back in shape. The rest of it looks good. Well, anyway, in the meantime, I'm taking some of this old Gojo, which is something I haven't done yet, and I'm cleaning. You can see there's a lot of crud and everything on the outside of this cabinet. Just take the old Gojo, put it on a clean rag, and smear it around and wipe it down. Just clean it. Gives it a nice sheen. Now, of course, once you wipe it down, clean it off, the sheen will disappear. But what I'm doing here is not trying to make a sheen. I'm trying to eliminate years and years and years of probably nicotine and all that sort of thing from cigarettes and cigars and spilled whiskey drinks and beer and stuff. Let me finish getting it cleaned up. Gojo works really good not only on this type of cabinet but on wooden cabinets as well. You take a wooden cabinet from a radio that's never been cleaned and you put that Gojo on a rag. You don't put it on the cabinet. Put it on the rag and start cleaning. Oh, you will not believe the difference. I'll have to go over this twice. Once to scrub it and you can see all the dirt that's coming off. And the second time I'll probably flip it around so the inside is out and use the inside to do the second cleaning and wipe down. It'll look pretty good. I mean, it's not going to look brand new, of course. I don't want it to look brand new, but it'll look a lot cleaner. One more thing about this Gojo or Goop or Orange Clean, whatever that orange stuff is called. If you use this stuff on your wooden cabinets in particular, get the creamy. Don't get the stuff with the grit in it. Especially on wooden cabinet, your wooden radio cabinets, or even plastic or Bakelite. You don't want the grit in there. You want to use the creamy stuff. It cleans really nice. It really does. Tell you what, guys, just in case some of you thought there wasn't much nicotine on the side of this the old juke cabinet, check this out. I'm not even done cleaning it yet. This is only the first go round. Nasty. Well, we've got this bottom strip finally painted. And got this shined up enough and screwed back on, but it's not tight. Just have it loose. We'll tighten it up in a minute. This molding is going to go like this. It'll go on top of this, which poses a problem actually. because you know there's a space now between the wood and the cabinet, unless I tilt the wood down like that, which I can do, no problem. But if I tried it once with another piece already, and I put a finishing nail down through here, and the wood split. The reason being is it's so thin, and this is rocking, it pulled the wood down and cracked it right across there. So I cut another piece. So what are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? Boy, I wish this cabinet would have been in just a little better shape. Take a look at this. Now that I've got this thing cleaned up and shined up, look at all the damage over the years. I don't know how this happened, but apparently the wood all disappeared. You can see it all the way up along the edges. And they coated it with some kind of stuff. Right here you can see the edging of it. See it? That's a type of contact type paper. Anyway, that's what we got, and I don't care, you know, I want it to play good, and it'll look pretty nice when we get it done, at least I hope. Better than it did. So what I'm going to do, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and silicone this thing on here and let it dry in place. I'll put a small clamp there to hold it in 2 or 3 places. I'm going to put a nice little layer of silicone. Then I'll take a small tack nail and tack it in 3 different places without going crazy on it. Just a small tack nail. I'll drill a hole first, tap it down in there, and that'll be it. I'll probably put it in the maybe in the thicker part of the wood up here, just enough to make sure that, you know, kick it with your foot, it doesn't come off. That's the best I'm going to be able to do with that. Also, I've decided to go ahead and put a few pieces back on, but first I got to strip the paint off. This is the coin return, and this is where the money box door fits. So we'll get all this old paint off of here and clean them up, and then I'll strip them down with stripper, and we'll go ahead and get those babies in there, and hopefully that'll look halfway decent. If not, we'll have to dress it up somehow. Well, it's coffee time, so I think what I'll do is go ahead and put our parts that I want to strip down here. This is coin return and frame for the money box, I think, and then I'll go ahead and pour some of this old paint stripper on there. Just smear it all around and go in the house and get that coffee. Won't take any time at all to do this. Yowza. Tell you what, while that stuff sits and soaks, let's look at one more thing before I go in for coffee. The wife just called and said come in and get something to eat too. That's one of the problems when I get out here in the shop. I always forget to eat, you know. I'll go in for a cup of coffee, but all of a sudden 5 o'clock in the afternoon it's like, geez, I haven't eaten a thing all day. Anyway, this piece of chrome will go along the front edge here. There's one on each side. When you look at the bottom of it, there is a piece of metal. See it? It starts at this edge and it goes about 3/4 of the way. Set it like this where we can see it a little bit better. It goes about 3/4 of an inch of the way, 3/4 of the way, and then it stops. Now the question is, I hate stuff like this. Should it go this way or should it go this way, you know, to be put on? What was their reasoning? I've also got a little bit of rust on there I'm going to have to probably knock off. Well, I'll tell you, the only reasoning I can come up with is to give it added strength down at the bottom. So I think it needs to go like this. And another reason behind that is there's a big glob of glue right here that I left on. Pretty good sized glob. It holds the metal away. Well, that glue would have never, it would have been in the holes on this thing right here. Okay, and it's not there. So it would have to be up here is where the space is for the glue. So that's the way it's going to go. Before we get started on the speaker cloth, one of our good subscribers asked, what are these notch things here doing on the speakers? You see one down there where the speaker holes, where the speakers are. What is this business? Well, you see the 3 holes? 1, 2, 3. It supports these things here. Okay, these are those crowns that go in there. So there's 3 holes here. There's 1, 2, 3. Even though this one was missing the screw right from the get-go, I'm going to have to get downtown and find some. Otherwise, you know, there'd be no support for this thing. That's the only reason. That's why it's there. Okay, piece of cake. These are the painted hinge plates for the door, the back door. And this is the one I had made. This one was made to match, to go on top. It'll go on top of the board. I probably should give it another spray right there, but it goes on top of the board, and then the hinge goes underneath, and the bolt goes up between the two of them, and with the nuts on the top. Okay, and that'll support the top of the door, and of course it sits on this right here. Let's see how this thing goes. It would go like, let me see, I think it goes like this, I think. Yeah, like that right there. Okay, and then that would go up like that from the bottom. You'll see once we get ready to put it in. But anyway, I did have that plate made. That was a good suggestion by one of our good subscribers. Today is Friday, the 3rd of November, and I have our grill out here next to the water hose. What I'm going to do is take some of this Windex multi-surface stuff, and I'm just going to spray it down. It's really dirty, really nasty. I don't know, this thing has probably never ever been cleaned. You can bet on it. We're just going to spray it, and I'm going in the house and have me a little something to eat for breakfast. I haven't had breakfast in so long. I usually don't even eat until way in the afternoon, but not today. We're going to make it happen today. I'm going to spray this. I may have to spray it 3 or 4 times. And then it's a nice humid day out by the way today, so it won't dry real quick. Well, I'll tell you what, guys, this stuff here is terrible. I will not be buying any more of this Windex multi-surface. It doesn't clean anything. It doesn't do a job at all. Look at that, still as dirty as when I started. So we're going to try Plan B. I have some fantastic bleach 5-in-1. We're going to spray it, and then I'm going to run in there, and we're going to add, well, of course we're going to add this to that previous cleaner. Let's see what that stuff does. I've even got a little scrub brush here now I'm going to have to clean it with. I know this is old dirt, but that cleaner, that Windex, should have done a better job than that. Well, there's some rust on the back of this thing. I didn't expect that. I hadn't really looked at it that close, but I'm going to go ahead and spray it. I obviously can't remove the rust from this. So I think what we're going to do is, I have that Rust-Oleum satin clear. I'll just go ahead and spray it with that, and that's supposed to, you know, Rust-Oleum is supposed to bind the rust, keep it from going any further. We'll see. Look, meanwhile, we'll just clean it as best we can. I'm giving it a scrub with this brush here. You know, I was told the wifey, I said, I'm going to have to go downtown and get a brush and scrub this thing. She said, well, you don't have to do that. Just take the one off the sink. I said, well, that's a great idea. Thank you very much, baby. You did really good to help me out. You know, I've been thinking about that rust on the backside of this thing. Yeah, can't you imagine some drunk in a bar coming out, you know? He just hates the world. He just takes a leak on the jukebox. I'll tell you what, guys, I've seen that done. Alright, let's go ahead and rinse this baby off. Well, she's looking pretty nice. Not the cleanest in the world, but I think I'll be able to live with it. I'll probably wind up clear coating both sides with satin. It's a satin clear coat is what it is. Well, I figured, what the heck, just bring out the old base and give it a good spray down too, because I'm going to repaint it. I noticed something I hadn't seen before. This gear mechanism right here, or the gear, it's actually 3 layers of metal riveted together. Here, here, and here, and at the other end as well. 3 layers of gears. And then they're just screwed in. I tried to get those screws out. I'll tell you what, that's a bear. So I'm not going to mess with them. And they don't want to come out? Fine, I'm not going to strip the heads trying to get them out. We'll just tape it off when the time comes. And when I spray it, it'll look real good anyway. And then I'll shine it up with some, you know, some steel wool or something before we paint. Make it look real good. I decided to go ahead and spray these things, give a very, very light coat of Rust-Oleum satin white enamel. And after this dries, it's going to be a light spray, nothing heavy. I don't want to clog up any of those holes and make it look weird. And when this dries, then we'll shuffle the 2 boards around in the cloth and do the next one, and then the last one. And then when all the white dries, then we'll go ahead and do the same thing to the black. Just, you know, a very light coat. I'll give you an idea what I'm talking about here. Just enough to make it look a lot better than it is. Look at that. It's looking more. That's looking real nice already. I don't want to get any bleed over into the black, but if I do, then I do. You know. Tell you what do you say we put this bottom hinge plate in? I got brand new screws. When I get the screws in, I'm going to give this thing a shot of clear enamel, and that'll keep them from rusting. Let me run those screws down in there. There's a big thick piece of wood there. The length of the screws will not protrude beyond the bottom. Now that looks good, right? Now all we have to do is put the one on up here to match that one down there. This is the plate that'll actually be on top, but I'm using this one, which is the original, to make sure the holes and everything are right. So how do we know where to put it? Because, you know, this has all been replaced and glued up and painted up and everything. How do we know where to put it? Well, you know, in the beginning I was complaining, if you remember way back, I was, you know, sniveling about screws that were protruding up through the holes here. And I almost caught my hand on one of them, tore my hand up almost to pieces, almost gotten snagged good on it, big old rusty thing. Well, it turns out those holes are going to be our best buddies after all, because this is the way it goes. We have a hole here. Let me see, we got a hole here and a hole here, and they match up exactly with the holes on the top. So what we need is, now this is down here. Let me get this thing cleared up so you can see what I'm doing. The distance from the edge of this plate to here is 11/16 of an inch. Now over here, I measured it out, guess what? 11/16 of an inch again, from this side to the edge of that plate. So all I have to do now is, you know, mark the holes with a pencil to make sure I know exactly what I'm drilling before I drill it, and drill holes big enough to accommodate these screws. And then this will go on the bottom, that one will go on the top, and we'll just tighten them on down. Then we'll go get the door and see if it fits. There's the metal plate there. The metal plate's on the bottom. It's a little bit crooked, but you know, that's the way the screws were in originally, and I'm, like I said when I was drilling other holes, I'm not going to drill new ones. Just going to go with it. It'll still work. Put our washer, our flat washer on there. The reason I'm going with flat washers, I don't want to tear up the paint. And then we'll go ahead and put the nuts on, or the lock washers rather, on top of those. And we'll put the nut on top of those. I hope I got another flat washer. I swore I had 3. We're just going to go ahead and tighten them down and then spray them with clear coat. Let me see if I can get all that done and get the door fitted in. Well, as you can see, our poor old door is in pretty rough shape. It's filthy and dirty, which can be dealt with, but on the other side, it's got a big old dent in it down here at the bottom. You can see that. I'm going to have to straighten that out. That is really messed up. It just creased right in. Anyway, to make things easier, I think what I'll do is I'll remove this gold part from the door itself, and just see if the gold, you know, that's the part that's got the hinge, the pins on it for the hinges, and so we'll go ahead and use that to see if it fits. Let's take it apart. Well, we've run into a little problem, but it's nothing that can't be fixed. The pin is hitting against the bottom of the cabinet up there. When I lift the door up, there's not enough clearance. Apparently they had a hole drilled there that enabled the pin to go up even further. See, it won't go up any further. It's hitting against up here. So I'll just drill a hole up through there into the wood a little bit. Give me just the clearance I need. I don't need a whole lot. What we're going to do here is go ahead and just stick this up in there, this large drill, and just recess it in a little bit. It's going to take 2 hands. I'll drill a little bit, take it out, try the door, do it 2 or 3 times until it finally works, because it has to go up in there before it'll set down in that hole right there. Alright, well, it took 3 little drills, you know, trial fit 3 times. She finally works great. Look at that old door. Look at that. Perfecto. Doesn't rub anywhere or anything. I'd say we're good to go on that. Alright, We'll go ahead and give it a lot of grease there when the time comes. This, of course, will have to be cleaned up and painted. We'll put plenty of grease top and bottom, mostly on the bottom because the weight will be downward. I decided to go ahead also, while I had time, and paint 2 of the 3 crowns that go on the front of the speaker. You know, they go on the speaker grill. This is what they did look like. And I wanted to, you know, paint them up silver, and they look really nice silver. The problem is I taped off this one and just painted over the top of this one to see, you know, what the effects of either one would be. Well, what happened was when I pulled the tape off, guess what? All the old paint came off with it. So we're just going to have to hand paint these. We'll just spray them all, hand paint them, and we'll be back in business. They look kind of neat though, don't they? All spruced up. Got to get this one done next. Since the decision has been made to go ahead and cover the entire front of this thing with a cloth instead of just the speaker holes, I went down to Walmart and I picked up some really nice thin black cloth. I think it's really going to do the job. Just enough to, it's really nice. I kind of like it. Easy to work with, I hope. I'm going to cut it to the right shape and then we're going to fasten it to the wood. Well, how are we going to fasten it to the wood? That's a big expanse. Well, I'll tell you what. It's nothing to it. I've done it before and it worked. Let's see if I can pull it off again. What we have here is heat bond extra hold for fabrics. You take 2 pieces of fabric, you put them together, you hit them with an iron, and it fuses the 2 together. So I got the brilliant idea a few years ago, well, if I had a floor model radio speaker cover that needed to be put on. So I took the board out of the floor model radio and I put this heat bond around the edges of the board, ironed it on with an iron, a clothes iron, and then after it cooled, you put the cloth on top of it and then iron it in place, and you stretch the cloth out, you know, nice and tight, and keep ironing as you go. It worked great. It worked great. Had no problems at all. It's still holding to this day. So that little precursor, I guess, was just training for what we're about to do today. So let me go ahead and cut the cloth. Well, first I'm going to lay on the ultra hold tape all the way around the edge, then a couple of strips in the center, because that's what they had. They glued it in the center and some glue around the edge. That's all they did originally at the factory. I know you can't see it very well, but there is glue on one side and paper on the other. And you're supposed to iron it with the paper side up when you're using it on cloth. And you're supposed to put it on the cloth first. Well, I'm doing it just the opposite. I'm going to put it on the wood, and then I'm going to iron the cloth to it. That's the way I did it last time, and it worked pretty good. You just watch. It probably won't work at all this time. It'll have to go down and buy new. But that's okay. That's okay. That's what hobbies are all about. We do not worry about such things at all. No. Now you iron, no steam, medium heat. Now I've already got this first piece laid in. I haven't ironed it yet. I'm waiting for the iron to heat up, and I'm just going to run it right on down there. I'm going to do the same thing over there. I'm going to do it along the top edge, along the bottom edge, and a couple down the middle, you know, as long as I have enough tape. That's what she looks like with the tape ironed on. Now all I have to do is peel off the top layer, put my cloth in place, and start ironing. Remember, medium heat. I think I'm around somewhere between polyester and nylon, somewhere in there. And you only hold the iron. It's not one of these things where you iron it on. You know, you press it down and hold it, press it down and hold it for a couple of seconds. You know, each time you press, and then you work your way around until all the tape. And even then, you're probably going to have some that's not going to be totally, you know, glued to the surface of the wood. It's just the way it is. The wood is bumpy and all kinds of stuff. So let's get the cloth up. First of all, let's get the paper off, then get the cloth up. Well, that's what it looks like as you're peeling the paper away. The glue stays there, and as I said, some of it did not get glued down all the way, but that's not a problem. When we lay the cloth on, we'll run the iron at a little higher temperature, and that'll fuse everything down. At least that's the plan. One more thing, getting this paper to peel is not quite so easy. It's very, very thin paper. So what I do is I have a very, very sharp knife, and I just kind of catch it under the edge, and then go ahead and peel it on down. Sometimes it'll all come off in one shot, sometimes it won't. You got to go back and pick up the pieces. Like up there, see those little white things? All the paper has been peeled, And we're about ready to put the cloth on and get it ironed down. Now look guys, this kind of stuff takes patience. If you don't have patience, stay away from doing this type, this kind of iron-on type setup that I'm doing here, because it is a tedious process. You got to be really taking your time. The cloth is in place, and I did go ahead and decide to take the scissors and cut it down a little bit. It was just a little bit too much to handle, hanging all over the edges, so I just kind of eyeballed it and cut it. Now we're going to start ironing this thing from the center. We're going to do one side, stretch it, make it a little bit tight, and then do the second side so the entire center is nice and glued. Then we can work our way around the outside as we go, but we got to get it in there glued down where it'll stay before we can start moving to the outsides. I jacked the temperature up to between rayon and polyester for the final ironing. And if that doesn't, if that's still not hot enough, I can take it up a little bit more. But I'm going to run right up the center the first time. Well, actually a little bit to the right. The center is nice and flat and ironed down. Let's move to the left. So far so good. Let's move to the right. There we go. All done nice and tight. Pretty cool, huh? That's how you do it. Let's take a break from that cabinet for a minute. Let's go ahead and put our motor run cap back on the mechanism. The clamp has been derusted, cleaned, and I put a nice clear coat on to protect it. Let's get that done. We're just going to go ahead and put it up there and solder these wires on. I may have to put new ends on. They're looking kind of ragged right there. They look kind of abused. The cap is back in, and that only leaves us with replacing this Selenium rectifier and this, I think that's a 120 ohm resistor, 120 ohm resistor right there. We'll go ahead and get those replaced. I think this Selenium rectifier is going to be replaced by this 3 amp diode, which is a 1N5406. It's 3 amps, and we're going to mount it on this little baby right here. And then this is going to be mounted up here, but that's awfully close to the capacitor. So what do we do about that? I got a solution. In my little stash drawer, I found a tube. I have no idea what that tube is from. You know something? I don't even care. It's going to work great. We're going to take this, run it through here like so. Then we're going to run that through here like so. That's the original screw that came out of the Selenium rectifier, by the way. Then we're going to screw it into that hole right there. Let's see what it looks like when we're done. That's the way she's going to be mounted. Matter of fact, it's already mounted. And of course the diode will go across there like that. And the wires and resistor that are connected to this Selenium will come off and be soldered to those terminals right there. Probably down these holes here in the center at the bottom. And I will have to add some wires. They're going to be a little bit too short, no doubt about it. Anyway, we'll save that for next time. We're going to go ahead and work on these side reflective pieces that go on each side of the speakers. And a couple of our good subscribers, they recommended, well, instead of trying, shining it up or doing whatever you want to do, why don't you just get that plastic stick-on, well, it's vinyl, I guess, vinyl stick-on chrome type of stuff. Just sticks right on, Well, I thought that was a pretty good idea when I first heard it, but then I got looking at the grill work on this jukebox. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Those pieces have to slide down between this metal and this wood, and there's barely enough room for it to fit. I have no doubt in my mind that when I tried to put it in there without bending this piece right here, that vinyl coating would rip. And even if it's a couple of nicks, a couple of tears, it's just not worth it. So I'm going to try something else. Let me show you what I decided, right or wrong. This is the way we're going to go. The first thing we do is completely derust it like I have here. And I went down to Harbor Freight with the idea of what I was going to do is get one of those angle buffers and get some compound sticks and just buff it and buff it and buff it with the compound sticks. But then I said, man, that's awful expensive for something I'm probably never going to use again. So I kept looking around, and I came up with this. This really saved the day for me and my brilliant idea. It was a box of all kinds of buffing pads, all sorts, all shapes, all sizes, that go to electric drill or even an angle buffer if you had one. That's some good solid stuff right there. And the best part about it is it came with 3 sticks, 3 compound sticks. You've got coarse, fine, and extra fine. That's going to do the trick, exactly what I need. Look at all these little buffers and everything. Now, whether or not they work, I don't know. It might be a total failure. But for 20 bucks, I figured it was worth a shot. So guess what, guys? In the next video, this will be first up out of the chute. We're going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to tape it to this table using, duct tape. And then we're just going to give this baby a workover and see what happens. So I appreciate you being here once again. We had a lot of irons in the fire this time. Until next time, this is John.